Gigabyte Aorus M5 Review. The Gigabyte Aorus M5 is another offering that looks to try and balance performance with usability, but does it sacrifice anything to achieve this? Well, on paper at least the M5 is a compelling gaming mouse. It features the highly praised Pixar 3389 optical sensor, which is capable of some impressive feats. Other strong attributes include the Omron switches, which have a very long life expectancy of 50 million presses. That isn't all, as the M5 also utilizes a weight system to allow you to tailor the feel of the mouse. As standard it weighs 118 grams, but with the weights, you can increase that to 130 grams in increments of 2.5 grams. Other highlights also include the integrated RGB fusion lighting, swappable underside glide feet, and software customization. We do have a few slight concerns about the Aorus M5, and these are mostly with the design and build. The design is really nice, though the shape could pose issues for some. The Aorus M5 arrives as a nicely stylized black box. On the front, there is an image of the M5 with a few of its key features. The back of the box again depicts the M5, but this time the image is numbered, which corresponds to the brief spec list. Within the box, there is the M5, some spare mouse feet, the weights, and documentation. The M5 is a nicely styled mouse, as it features plenty of curves and creases which add a bit of interest. Gigabyte have managed to make the mouse look gamery without going over the top. Priced at just over $50 in the UK, $69 US, $79 AUS, the Aorus M5 strikes a nice balance between good pricing and performance, though it does have a few shortcomings. One area that did let us down was some parts of the build. The main body feels solid and robust, it's just the scroll wheel is wobbly and squeaky, and the cable is thin and flimsy feeling. Another key area that was a letdown is the software, as it needs a fair amount of work to bring it up to the same level as the rest of the field. The core components of the software are present, they just need tweaking and improving to make the experience better. Onto the strong suits, and the M5 has a fair few. One of those is the overall performance. The M5 uses a great Pixar 3389 sensor, as well as having Omron switches, which make the M5 great for everyday tasks and also gaming. The weighting system also helps this, as you can tailor the way the M5 feels by adding additional weight. The M5 also has brilliant RGB, which is one of the most customizable we've ever come across. The RGB is also nicely rich, vibrant, and has the ability to create lovely lighting gradients. The M5 is also comfortable, depending on the type of mouse you are used to. If you are used to a slim low-profile mouse, then the M5 may be a bit too big and bulky for you, but if you are coming from a more traditional gaming mouse, then the experience is much better. All in all, for $54 in the UK, the M5 is a solid choice for a gaming mouse, and even though it does have a few issues, the pros do outweigh the cons, and the M5 is a great all-around offering. Gigabyte Z390 Aorus Pro, Intel Z390, Motherboard Review. Gigabyte has upped the number of fan headers to 8, all of them being flexible hybrid PWM or DC mode headers. The headers circled in red are 1A headers, while the 3 circled in blue are rated up to 2A. 2 external headers will accept external temperature sensor readings. We circled them in green. The motherboard has a neutral color design, so it can fade into the background if you want it to. The rear of the motherboard is bare of most components except a USB 2.0 hub. The rear I/O panel features 4 USB 2.0 ports, HDMI, 3 USB 3.0 ports, 2 Type A USB 3.1 ports, 1 Type-C USB 3.1 port, 1 Gigabit LAN, and 7.1 audio outputs with S/DIF out. The PCIe layout is as follows: all X1 slots are routed to the PCHs as the bottom X16 electrical X4 PCIe 3.0 slot. The top 2 PCIe X16 slots operate at X16/X0 or X8/X8. The motherboard features two M.2 PCIe X4 slots that support SATA ports and share some lanes with the SATA ports. We get 6 SATA 6GB/S ports on the motherboard. We also find one USB 3.0 internal header and a USB 3.0 Type-C internal header. At the top right corner of the motherboard, we get an 8-pin power connector and a 4-pin power connector. At the top right corner of the motherboard, we find a digital, addressable, RGB LED header and a normal RGB LED header. There is also a digital RGB voltage selection jumper. At the bottom right corner, we find a Thunderbolt 3.0 header and boot LEDs near the front panel header. We also get 2 USB 2.0 internal headers, an RGB LED header, a digital RGB header, and a digital RGB voltage selection header. The motherboard's heatsink uses a heat pipe, which is an upgrade from the last generation. All the heat sinks make solid contact with the components they are designed to cool. Excellent VRM. Thermal testing reveals that the VRM on this motherboard is excellent. While it might not be at the level of the Aorus Master, temperatures were still extremely impressive. The 50A drive MOS and heatsink with heat pipe did a solid job of keeping things cool. Fans. Gigabyte has added more fan headers for a total of 8 on this motherboard, and with that comes full control in the slightly revamped Duffy and through Gigabyte software. We also like that Gigabyte included 2 external temperature sensors. Quality. At this price point, it might be fair to say that Gigabyte has taken a loss to win over more market share, and we say this because the quality of certain things on this motherboard are rare for a sub-$200 motherboards. Take the drive MOS, the 2x copper in the PCB, heat pipe heatsink, and even things like integrated I/O shield as examples. No future rear I/O Wi-Fi. Considering that Gigabyte has a Wi-Fi version of this motherboard, many might assume that later on they could buy a Wi-Fi card and toss it in. While the solder pads are there for a Wi-Fi M.2 card, the actual slot is not. We very much enjoyed the motherboard, and at this price point we have looked at similar motherboards, but none of them had the same level of quality in the VRM, which resulted in slightly poorer performance. If the VRM is of concern to you, then you should definitely look at this motherboard if you can't afford to spend over $200 on a Z390 motherboard. The feature set is also pretty good, mostly platform features and not many aftermarket ones, but that isn't a negative. It means all the ports will work at reasonable speeds and perform admirably in regards to compatibility. Overall, if overclocking is one of your main concerns, then the Z390 Aorus Pro is an excellent buy. BioStar X470 GT8 Review. BioStar are a Taiwanese company that specialize in products such as motherboards, graphics cards and other home electronics products, finding excellent market penetration within Chinese markets. The X470 chipset has been out for some months now, but today we take a little step back and look at another motherboard utilizing the popular chipset. BioStar have provided their flagship model, the X470 GT8, offering RGB lighting, M.2 storage, carbon fiber effect heatsinks and lightning charger capability, amongst other features. BioStar aren't a manufacturer we see often at Vortez, but the X470 GT8 sounds promising on paper. How does it perform in our tests? Read on to find out. BioStar unveils Racing X470 GT8, a full ATX motherboard with the AMD X470 chipset for the second generation AMD Ryzen processors, Raven Ridge. The BioStar Racing X470 GT8 offers performance and aesthetics for today's overclockers and gamers. It has a premium black racing themed PCB design, digital power plus, Hi-Fi zone design, integrated USB 3.1 Gen 2, Type A plus C, iron slot protection, and advanced Vivid LED DJ for more RGB lighting control. With our previous experience of X470 motherboards, we had high hopes for the BioStar X470 GT8, with its relatively low price tag. However, in testing, we were left a little disappointed. Starting off with previous problems, we began testing on this motherboard about 3 months before the release of this review, and ran into constant blue screens and other issues. We shelved the board then went back to it, Hoping for some BIOS updates or a fresh approach on it, we believe we located the root of the issue. With the Corsair Vengeance RAM running at 3000 MHz, we were experiencing inconsistent blue screen events, with different codes each time. Setting the RAM at, what the system believed to be XMP, at 2933 MHz at 15:17:17:38:58, we managed to complete our testing. Aesthetically, we're a fan of the GT8, with the carbon fiber effect and all black appearance. We believe it'll fit into most builds without an issue, though the RGB lighting can be a little jarring and garish at first, especially with the random vivid LED DJ writing on the I/O shield. Performance in all of our tests, most of which it was at the bottom of, let the GT8 down hugely. This may well be down to the 70 MHz drop in memory speed, but it's unlikely to cause a massive hit as seen in some benchmarks. Overall, the performance was underwhelming compared to all other X470 and most of the B450 offerings. We'd also find it difficult to recommend an X470 motherboard with a single M.2 slot. We consider a pair the bare minimum for enthusiast boards. If you're not bothered about overclocking and seek a cost-effective introduction to an X470 chipset, the GT8 will perform reasonably well, but better performance and features aren't too far out of reach. Plus, carbon fiber effect looks great, decent price, power/reset/clear CMOS on the motherboard, fast charge USB header. Minus, RGB lighting is jarring and garish, only one M.2 slot, no overclocking ability, DDR4 XMP issues. Shuttle XBC Slim Barebone XH310 Review. The 3-liter XH310 Slim Barebone from Shuttle is very flexible in terms of configuration and supports the latest Coffee Lake Intel processors. We can install up to 32 GB of system memory, CPUs up to 65 watts DDP, 95 watts SKUs can be installed as well, but the chipset will limit the frequencies in order to avoid overheating, and NVMe, a Wi-Fi card and more. Besides the compact NVMe, we can also fill the unit with no less than two 2.5' drives and an optical drive. If the optical drive is not necessary, we can always purchase the PhD4 3.5' HDD rack for even more storage. In the following article, we will concentrate our look upon another XBC Slim Barebone from Shuttle, the XH310. This particular model can fit an optical drive, 2.5' storage drive, but also an M.2 SSD for extra storage. With an extra adapter, we can use our 3.5' HDD inside, add extra COM ports, add wireless capabilities with a WLAN kit and more. The unit includes the Intel H310 chipset and does support Pentium Gold/Celeron/i3/i5/i7 processors, with a theoretical TDP limit of 65 watts. We will use for testing purposes an i5-8600K SKU and see how it does handle, despite its 95 watts TDP rated value. The unit is shipped inside a medium-sized cardboard enclosure, which features the usual Shuttle art. The box is also provided with a plastic handle, for easy manipulation. In order to avoid damages during transit, the product is protected between a thick layer of foam material. The bundle is supplied inside a separate cardboard box, while the documentation is available in different languages, all which are wrapped in a resealable bag. The documentation is supplied in very much detail, with each installation step described with photos and text. As a bundle, we did receive a power lead, the power brick, thermal compound inside a syringe, drive fixing screws, M.2 slot fixing screws, the LG1151V2 cover, but also the CD with the necessary drivers. The power supply was manufactured by AC Bell and is rated on the output as 19 volts at 4.74A, 90 watts peak. The unit does measure 23.8 by 20 by 7.25 centimeters, L/W/H, and is available with an all-black color design. The frontal plastic cover does house a 5.25' bay cover for the optical slimline drive, DVD or Blu-ray, 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports, 2 USB 2.0 ports, a microphone and headphone jack, one power button with a small blue LED but also an orange LED indicator for HDD activity. The left side does feature a large ventilation grille. The 3-liter XH310 Slim Barebone from Shuttle is very flexible in terms of configuration and supports the latest Coffee Lake Intel processors. We can install up to 32 GB of system memory, CPUs up to 65 watts TDP, 95 watts SKUs can be installed as well, but the chipset will limit the frequencies in order to avoid overheating, and NVMe a Wi-Fi card and more. Besides the compact NVMe, we can also fill the unit with no less than two 2.5' drives and an optical drive. If the optical drive is not necessary, we can always purchase the PhD4 3.5' HDD rack for even more storage. Since the unit is larger than the DH310 and features a more elaborated cooling system, it can run at maximum stress with lower peak CPU temperatures, and this also translates in higher ratios and better overall performance. In terms of power consumption, we have recorded a total of 13.3 watts in idle and 73.5 watts in full load. The cooling system is more silent as well versus the DH310, greater than we have measured about 29.2 dB idle and 35.7 dB full load. Shuttle does place at our disposal as optional hardware the vertical PS01 stand, the PVO2 VESA mount accessory, the CXB01 cable for external push-button switch, but also the PCM31 bracket for installing 3 more COM ports, for development purposes. The XH310 Barebone has a RRP of €214 excluding taxes, which is a good price for what we are getting. Walmart's overpowered gaming desktop DTW3 review. Gaming is an expensive hobby, thanks not only to regular purchases of new titles but also because of the price of powerful hardware. But Walmart, known for its bargain bin pricing, and a sports arena have teamed up to produce the overpowered gaming desktop DTW3, $1,699, no availability in the UK. A slightly underpriced gaming desktop that had to cut some corners to save some money. Sure, you can save a few bucks and get a solidly spec'd GTX 1080 desktop, but we'd rather spend a little more money for a product from an established brand with quality components inside. The overpowered DTW3 is a big, gaudy tempered glass box. And not only is it ugly, but it's not great for airflow. Well, I think that it's ugly. The box has 3 fans in the front, all of which have very visible LED lights around the rims to provide an RGB style experience. A 4th fan, in the back, is the same way. The box is a very dark tempered glass, which emphasizes the effect. This could potentially be cool if there were more RGB parts inside the case, but it just makes it hard to see any parts that aren't the fans. The overpowered branding is impossible to miss. There's a badge with the full name on the front above the fans and a massive op decal on the left side. The O features the Sports Arena logo. That's an organization with a few sports training facilities, mostly in the western United States, which looks a lot like 2 people preparing for a romantic embrace. The right side panel, however, is solid metal that covers the cable management. Outside of controlling the LEDs with software, there is a LED button on the top of the case to cycle through effects. Additionally, the desktop comes with a remote control for different colors, speeds and patterns. And while I think that the design is over the top, many in my office who were attracted to our testing lab by the flashing lights thought it looked cool. Most of them are people who shop at big box stores and would never build a gaming desktop, so it's possible that while I'm snobbish about it, Walmart is doing something right with its aesthetics. If you want your attention grabbed, this light show will do it. My big issue with the design from a functional perspective is that there's not much room for airflow in the front. The glass leaves almost no space for air to come in through the intake fans, and there's also no dust filter to keep the whole thing clean. There are 2 dust filters on the bottom of the machine. In the long run, that can lead to some high temperatures. At 18 by 16.2 by 7 inches, 457.2 by 411.5 by 177.8 millimeters. It takes up quite a bit of room on top of a desk, but it's not much bigger than competing mid-towers like the Asus ROG Strix GL12, 18 by 15.7 by 7 inches. Specifications: processor Intel Core i7-8700. Motherboard Gigabyte H370 MDS3 HATX. Memory 32 GB DDR4 2400 MHz, 2x16 GB. Graphics Gigabyte Force GTX 1080 Gaming OC11G. Storage Toshiba DTO1 ACAT 202 TB 7200 RPM, 3.5 inch. Adida IS3 16512 GB SATA SSD. Operating System Windows 10 Home. Dimensions 18 by 16.2 by 7 inches, 457.2 by 411.5 by 177.8 millimeters. Price as configured $1,699. The DTW3 is the most expensive overpowered desktop at $1,699 for an Intel Core i7-8700, Gigabyte Force GTX 1080 Gaming OC11G, 512 GB SSD, 2 TB HDD and 32 GB of RAM. The cheaper DTW1, $999, has the same CPU but bumps the GPU down to a GTX 1070 and has a smaller 256 GB SSD and 16 GB of RAM. For those who want something in between, the $1,499 DTW2 has a GTX 1080 but is otherwise identical specs to the DTW3. Walmart is known for its bargain prices, but the overpowered gaming desktop DTW3 isn't exactly cutting any prices. If you're looking to get a pre-built machine, there are other sellers with better reputations who may give you better parts for a similar price. For instance, on Alienware's website, I put together an Alienware Aura with the same CPU, a GTX 1080 Ti, 16 GB of RAM, rather than the 32 GB on the DTW3. A 256 GB M.2 PKINV SSD, instead of a slower, larger 512 GB SATA SSD, and a 2 TB HDD for just $110 more. Additionally, the Aurora is a better looking system. Building an HP Omen Obelisk, I went just over $1,800 for a system with a GTX 1080. But at least I know I'm getting HyperX memory and a 500 watt power supply with an 80+ bronze efficiency rating. Granted, every other pre-built PC at other builders, like Falcom Northwest, is expensive. Its Talon and Tiki start at $2,200. But here's the thing, I couldn't get it cheaper. Those no-name components do cut costs. And some people really just want the cheapest thing, not the best thing. Though I wouldn't recommend that. Immediately upon launch, the internet decided to love to hate the overpowered gaming desktop DTW3. Esports Arena could maybe do a gaming PC, but Walmart? Well, there's a lot going wrong here, but the hate is somewhat misplaced. For someone who is truly looking for a bargain above all else and has no interest in building their own, it's hard to beat the price. And the GTX 1080 Ti still offers solid performance. No, the cooling situation isn't great. No, there's not great RGB control. No, the cable management is far from perfect. What I suggest is that, if you can afford it, you go to either a local computer store or a vendor with a solid reputation and spend $100 to $200 more for a machine with better airflow and higher quality parts. Yes, it's cheap, but if you're going to buy a PC, you want it to last years and run well. I appreciate Walmart's freshman attempt, but there are too many little mistakes and curious part choices to wholeheartedly recommend it. If price is everything, consider this. Otherwise, look elsewhere. Arctic Z2 3D Dual Monitor ARM Review. When you make the jump from a single monitor to dual monitors, you'll notice that a lot of real estate on your desk is taken up by these monitors and their stands. Also, Many monitor stands are junk and do not offer much in terms or adjusting viewing angles of your monitor. That is where a monitor arm comes in. It removes the stand, giving you back that room on your desk and offers far more adjustment. Today we have the Z2 3D monitor arm from Arctic. It supports 2 monitors up to 27 inches, offers tilt, swivel, and rotation adjustments, and even comes with a USB 3.0 hub. Let's get some monitors on the Z2 3D and see what it can do. The Z2 3D comes in a nice retail package. On the front we have a photo of the monitor arm put together, and it lets us know it supports displays up to 27 inches, versus 75 or 100 mounts, and a total load up to 35.2 pounds. Flipping over to the back, it shows displays installed on the arm and specifications for the arms, USB hub, and power adapter. I've used a handful of monitor mounts, monitor arms, and I have to say the Arctic Z2 3D is one of my favorites. In general, if you have more than one monitor or your desk space is limited, it is a great idea to invest in a monitor arm. They lift your monitor up off the desk and allow for easy adjustment. The Arctic Z2 3D is a dual monitor arm which supports screens up to 27 inches and a total of 35.2 pounds. It also gives you tilt, swivel, and rotation adjustment. There are only a few monitors out there that offer that type of adjustment with their stands. The Z2 3D also comes with a 4-port powered USB hub. This makes connecting your keyboard and mouse much easier, and if you need to plug in a flash drive or other USB device, it is right there. When it comes to installation, things are not that bad. Plus, supports up to 2 27-inch displays, extension arms, easy to follow instructions, offers a lot of adjustment. Minus, can't install it without the USB hub. Intel Gen 11 IPU roughly as fast as Radeon Vega 8, Ryzen 3 2200G. Today, Intel is revealing major details about its upcoming CPU and graphics architectures to select audience. A big scoop: video cards landed is the company's next generation Gen 11 integrated graphics core, the first major upgrade to the company's 4-year-old Gen 9 architecture. According to them, a Gen 11 default GT2 trim, we assume, graphics core should offer a compute throughput of 1 TFLOP-S, which is in the league of the Radeon Vega 8, with its 1.12 TFLOP-S throughput. The Vega 8 is part of AMD's Ryzen 3 2200G processor. Raw compute power only paints half the picture. The IPU reportedly also supports tile-based rendering. This is a highly publicized method of rendering that made its consumer debut with NVIDIA Pascal. Also mentioned are redesigned FPU interfaces, support for half-precision FP16, 2x pixel, clock pipelines, display stream compression that lets it support 5K and 8K displays, and adaptive sync. Intel will debut its Gen 11 IPU with its upcoming Core Ice Lake processors that debut on the company's 10nm silicon fabrication process. Intel unveils a clean slate CPU core architecture codenamed Sunny Cove. Intel today unveiled its first clean slate CPU core microarchitecture since Nehalem, codenamed Sunny Cove. Over the past decade, the 9 odd generations of core processors were based on incrementally refined descendants of Nehalem, running all the way down to Coffee Lake. Intel now wants a clean slate core design, much like AMD Zen is a clean slate compared to Stars, or to a large extent even Bulldozer. This allows Intel to introduce significant gains in IPC, single-thread performance, over the current generation. Intel's IPC growth curve over the past 3 microarchitectures has remained flat, and only grew single-digit percentages over the generations prior. It's important to note here, that Sunny Cove is the code name for the core design. Intel's earlier code naming was all-encompassing, covering not just cores, but also uncore, and entire dies. It's up to Intel's future chip designers to design dies with many of these cores, a future generation IPU such as Gen 11, and a next generation Uncore that probably integrates PCIe Gen 4.0 and DDR5 memory. Intel details Sunny Cove as far as mentioning IPC gains, a new ISA, new instruction sets and hardware capabilities, including AVX 512, and improved scalability, ability to increase core counts without running into latency problems. The first products featuring Sunny Cove cores is slated as early as by 2019, and will be built on Intel's 10 nanometers DUV silicon fabrication process. Intel didn't stop at Sunny Cove, and went on to mention two of its successors. Willow Cove is an incremental update, letting its designers eke out more effective IPC by improving on-die caches, transistor optimization, and the addition of new security features. In many ways, Sunny Cove and Willow Cove relate to each other like AMD Zen and Zen Plus. The first Willow Cove-based processors will launch in 2020, based on a refined 10 nanometers process node. Lastly, there's Golden Cove, slated for 2021. Here Intel could take advantage of a newer silicon fabrication process, either an extremely refined 10 nanometers derivative or even 7 nanometers UV, to increase IPC, single-thread performance. In addition, Intel will improve the core's I performance, probably the ability to multiply matrices, and improved host signal processing for 5G and networking. Intel's low-power architectures see tremendous exceed Goldmont in 2019, packing increased IPC, battery management, and network HSP. Gracemont, slated for 2021, will improve IPC further, and improve vector performance, possibly heralding AVX in some form to the low-power architecture. Gracemont is succeeded by Nextmont. Intel hasn't decided a code name yet, in 2022 plus, with even higher IPC. Intel 10 nanometers Ice Lake to combine Sunny Cove CPU cores with Gen 11 IPU. Intel's upcoming Ice Lake die could be the company's biggest processor innovation in a decade, combining new clean slate designed Sunny Cove CPU cores, and a new integrated graphics solution based on the company's Gen 11 architecture. Sunny Cove introduces significant IPC, single-thread performance, gains over Coffee Lake, introduces new ISA instruction sets, including AVX 512, and a brand new on-core component, while the Gen 11 graphics core is Intel's first IPU to reach the 1 TFLOP/S mark. Intel demonstrated the ultra-low power Ice Lake USOC platform in its 2018 Architecture Day briefing. This Ice Lake U chip, with its TDP in the ballpark of 15W, was shown ripping through 7-zip and Tekken 7. With 7-zip, Intel was trying to demonstrate vectors and SHA-NI improving archive encryption performance by 75% over Skylake. The Gen 11 IPU was shown providing a smoother gameplay than Skylake with Gen 9, although the company neither mentioned resolution, nor frame rates. Enench wagers it's above 30 FPS. Intel's kicks the door open to challenge the GeForce Radeon duopoly. Intel's discrete graphics card for PC enthusiasts is real. Intel won't just address the pro graphics and accelerated compute markets, but also consumer graphics, challenging the duopoly of NVIDIA GeForce and AMD Radeon. Scheduled for 2020, the new Intel's is a family of discrete GPUs targeting client segment, consumer graphics, as well as enterprise, pro graphics and compute. As for performance, we speculate that the first products could span a vast lineup of ASICs starting single-digit FLOP/S range for the client segment GPU, looking purely at a nondescript performance time graph presented by Intel. This graph depicts performance double linearly over time up to Gen 9, and increase to Intel's own state 1 FLOP/S for the Gen 11 IPU core in 2019, a full 4 years following Gen 9. There are a spectrum of GPUs going from the entry-level client segment all the way up to mid-range and enthusiast segment. Intel finally used the E word. For the enterprise segment GPU, however, we see a sharp rise in performance over Gen 11, which could well be in the double through triple-digit FLOP/S range. Intel is targeting the compute data center market dominated by NVIDIA Tesla and AMD Radeon Instinct. This graph perfectly explains why Intel wants a discrete GPU now. It wants to go after the lucrative compute data center segment, but wants to give the dividends of its R&D to gamers, too. Intel's Foveros-based, Hybrid x86 CPUs mean the company needed to sprinkle some ARM. Intel at its Architecture Day revealed one of the more exquisite in-house designs for the company in recent years, a Hybrid x86 chip that seems to imbibe from ARM's own big. Little design mantra. The new Hybrid x86 CPU that was announced takes this design choice in pairing a single, high-performance Sunny Cove core with 4 smaller Atom cores. This chip is built using Intel's Foveros manufacturing technology, which means a 22FFLIO chip serves as an active interposer, connected via TSVs to a 10 nanometers die that contains both types of cores. The tiny chips measures just 12 by 12 by 1 mm, 144, and looks to reduce footprint even further by including a POP, package-on-package, memory design. The new Intel design is aimed at low-power environments, with the chip having been designed to work on a 2 mW standby power ratio, with less than a 7W of power, for a big. Little 5-core design and a 64EU design with Gen 11 graphics core. Intel's Jim Keller said that the company is testing the intricacies and advantages of this design internally, so more products based on this manufacturing and packaging mantra could pop up sometime in the future. EKWB releases Velocity D RGB CPU blocks with addressable RGB lighting. We took a detailed look at the EK Velocity CPU water block recently, which was released in over 14 different combinations of top material, acetal, acrylic, nickel-plated brass, base plate, copper, nickel-plated copper, and even specific RGB and non-RGB versions. Part of their new quantum design philosophy, today saw the addition of more versions to choose from. In particular, for those who felt having 24 RGB LEDs displaying the same color was not enough, EKWB has introduced 2, each for Intel and AMD sockets, digital addressable RGB LED versions to allow for every single LED to shine a different hue. As with the other RGB versions, these are compatible with ASUS Aura, MSI Mystic Light, Gigabyte, Aorus RGB Fusion, ASRock Polychrome Sync and other digital RGB controllers, thus allowing for a cohesive lighting ecosystem in your PC build. Everything else is similar, including the new cooling engine that offers lower restriction to coolant flow while not necessarily improving on thermal performance relative to the older EK Supremacy Evo. The EK Velocity D RGB CPU block comes in a nickel, plexi or nickel, acetal version for Intel and AMD sockets and are priced at €99.90 and €99.90 respectively, incorporated VAT in EU. ASUS GeForce RTX 2070 Strixhawk 8GB review. Back in September, Nvidia launched its GeForce RTX 20 series graphics card family with the RTX 2080 and RTX 2080 Ti. Close to a month later, the company launched its third fastest card in the family, the GeForce RTX 2070. This is an important product for Nvidia because even at a relatively steep price of $500, it is the most affordable one offering real-time ray tracing in games, or at least a semblance of it. The RTX 2070 is being offered for the vast bulk of gamers that play at 1440p resolution or lower. Nvidia has also made certain interesting design choices for the RTX 2070. Predecessors of this card, such as the GTX 1070 and GTX 970, have been based on the same chips as the SKU just above them, such as the GTX 1080 and GTX 980. Nvidia is basing the RTX 2070 on its third largest Turing chip, the TU106, instead of the TU104. It's important to mention here, though, that TU106 isn't exactly a successor of chips in the same way as the GP106 or GM206. While those two have exactly half the muscle of the GP104 or GM204 respectively, the TU106 is half of the top dog TU102 instead of the TU104. This chip also gets the same 256-bit wide GDDR6 memory interface, which is unchanged from the TU104. The philosophy behind the TU-106 may have been to design a lean chip that is cheaper to build for the simple fact that it has a smaller die size than the TU-104. Today, we are reviewing the ASUS GeForce RTX 2070 Strixhawk, which is an overclocked custom design variant of the RTX 2070. It comes with a medium-sized overclock and features a large triple-slot, triple-fan thermal solution. The ASUS RTX 2070 Strixhawk is currently listed online for $630. The ASUS GeForce RTX 2070 Strixhawk comes with a medium-sized overclock out of the box, which yields an additional 3% performance, not a lot. This seems to be a common theme with touring. Overclocked versions really aren't significantly faster than the Founders Edition due to how the power limits work, but more on that later. Compared to the GTX 1080, the RTX 2070 Strixhawk is 20% faster, and the GTX 1080 Ti is 6% ahead. The RTX 2080 comes with a 16% performance uplift. AMD's fastest, the Radeon RX Vega 64, is around 20% slower, with much more power draw, heat, and noise at the same time. With these performance characteristics, we can recommend the RTX 2070 for 1440p highest details gaming. ASUS has installed a mighty heatsink on the Strixhawk, which delivers excellent temperatures of only 65 degrees Celsius under load, but does so with quite a lot of fan noise that's noticeably higher than on the Founders Edition. I'm not sure why ASUS is focusing so much on temperatures with this generation, as there is really no tangible difference between 65 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius, and 75 degrees Celsius. It doesn't affect dock potential or lifetime in a meaningful way. Luckily, ASUS has included a dual BIOS feature on their card, with the second BIOS offering a quiet mode that runs at the same performance levels, but with a less aggressive fan curve. In that mode, the card is very quiet with 31 dB, but I feel that it could still be a little bit quieter, which would strengthen ASUS's position with the low noise crowd. The quiet BIOS does have fan stop for the perfect noise-free experience during idle, internet browsing, and light gaming. The default BIOS will not stop its fans, which I find surprising since nearly all vendors offer this feature on their graphics cards, more quiet or not. With 27 dB, the noise levels in idle are really quiet, just not completely noise-free, which would have been easy to do. Like all other GeForce RTX 20 series cards, the ASUS RTX 2070 is held back by Turing's power limits despite the addition of an extra 6-pin power connector. While previous generations were limited by GPU temperatures, cards will now sit in their power limit all the time during gaming, which means the highest boost clocks are never reached during regular gameplay. ASUS did increase the board power limit from 185W to 215W, even higher values would have definitely helped yield more performance. With 269W, the manual adjustment range for the power limit is higher than on any other RTX 2070 card we tested so far. The VRM is upgraded to 8-phase as well, so allowing even more power draw out of the box shouldn't have been a problem. Manual overclocking has once more become more complicated with this generation. Since the cards are always running in the power limiter, you can no longer just dial in stable clocks for the highest boost state to find the maximum overclock. The biggest issue is that you can't just reach that state reliably, so your testing is limited to whatever frequency your test load is running at. Nevertheless, we managed to pull through and achieved a good overclock on our RTX 2070 that translated into 6% additional performance. We found overclocking potential of our card to be similar to the Founders Edition and other RTX 2070 cards we tested before. The ASUS card does tick a lot of feature checkboxes. For example, it has voltage measurement points for voltmeters, and the previously mentioned dual BIOS feature. Another useful feature can be the two fan headers that let you connect case fans to your graphics card, and they'll run at the same speed as the card's own fans, which should help with noise when not gaming, while still providing airflow when the card is heavily loaded. Last but not least, the card offers RGB lighting on the back plate, and you may connect other components in your system to it so that colors are matched. With a price of $630, the Asus RTX 2070 Strixhawk is not exactly cheap. Even though it does offer a lot of added features, I find it difficult to justify that price. You can find a lot of RTX 2070 cards starting at $500, with very similar performance because out-of-the-box overclocking doesn't make much of a difference with touring. We reviewed the EVGA RTX 2070 Black a while ago, which is one of those $500 cards, and were pleasantly surprised by it, and it offers good noise levels too. If you are looking for the highest performance, then the Zotac AMP offers the highest clocks and is cheaper than the Strix at the same time. The mostly cited selling point for Asus this generation has been the low noise levels of the cards, thanks to the quiet BIOS, but that price increase will be a tough sell. ASRock Z390 Teiki Ultimate Review. ASRock Z390 Teiki Ultimate. In this review, we peek at one of the most luxurious Z390 motherboards from ASRock. Meet the Z390 Teiki Ultimate. Ready for it Thor 9th Gen processors. This board is about performance, aesthetics and lots of features. The board looks great, a PCH cover and black and gray style with some gear imagery really looks nice. The dual pin connector should indicate a strong VRM, and this motherboard as such has 12 power phases. Ethernet is king at the Ultimate. Included is proper Wi-Fi as well as 2x gigabit LAN, but also wait for it, a 10 Gbps LAN jack powered by Aquantia. With the new Coffee Lake S refresh, you can expect 3 processors predominantly become popular in demand for the PC gamer, as each and every one of the processors will offer fantastic gaming performance if your graphics card is fast enough. Intel is able to boost the turbo frequencies towards that 5 GHz domain. And that is a big advantage that Intel has over AMD, which is wedges shut at that 4.2 GHz range with Ryzen 2000, which is overall really good, but the hyperclock core is where it matters in CPU-bound gaming, for example with super high-end graphics cards like the RTX 2080 Ti. Intel is releasing these 3 9000 series processors initially: Core i5-9600K, 6-core, 6 threads, Core i7-9700K, 8-core, 8 threads, Core i9-9900K, 8-core, 16 threads. That does not mean you'll only see 3 processors in the Core 9000 range. Word out on the street is that approx like 9100, 9400 and 9500 core series processor will be released as well. However, this specific launch invokes 3 processors. For this review, we'll use the 8-core, 16 threads Core i9-9900K through our benchmark paces. You'll be able to tweak this rock towards at least 5.0 GHz on all 8 cores with this motherboard. So yeah, the ASRock Z390 Teiki Ultimate has 12 digital VRMs. It has been embedded with 4 DDR4 DIMM slots offering frequencies of 4200 MHz, OCK, on the Z390 Teiki Ultimate. Storage includes no less than 8 SATA 3 ports as well as 3 M2 slots. You get 3 gigabit jacks, 2x gigabit and 110 Gbps, and also Wi-Fi has been embedded, 2x2 802.11 acres connection with a possible 1.73 gigabits per second throughput. The board as stated is positioned in that higher end region of what is considered the mainstream desktop segment. Realtek 1220 gets supplemented by an NE5532 headset amplifier and Nichicon capacitors. Have a peek and then let's head onwards into the review, my man. She's a beauty, alright. ASRock did really well with the Teiki Ultimate. It might be the first $299 Z390 motherboard that I find worth the money. And that is mainly because of the 3 M.2 slots, AC Wi-Fi, 8 SATA ports and then triple Ethernet jacks with one of them being an awesome 10 Gbps connector, nice. At default settings and after having tested a dozen boards, the performance all is more or less the same, as well as the features. Big pluses for the motherboard are the integration of 3 M.2 slots and Ethernet functionality. Performance overall we cannot complain about. We did have higher than expected temperatures during overclocking though. In hindsight, I might have had a wrong pump setting. The board has a good cooled VRM design, the thermal images have been impressive to watch alright. Z390 overall remains to be a bit of a simple release, it is a small step upwards with merely adding native USB 3.1 Gen 2 and Wi-Fi, and it's better optimized on the VRM area to deal with the new 8-core processors. However, the motherboard manufacturers always seem to improve and excel on what is available. Aesthetically speaking, I think this board is one of the best motherboards out there, just look at that. With this 8 cores and 16 threads proc you get a 95-watt TDP processor. With the system at idle with a GeForce RTX 2080 installed, 16GB memory, SSD and the Z390 motherboard, I hovered at roughly 60-65 watts in idle. That's okay, the load values are okay as well but definitely higher. When we stress the processor 100% run we reach roughly 200 watts with this 8-core part. That's the entire system. That is on the high side alright. Then again, does anyone actually care about it when you get performance metrics like shown today? For Coffee Lake S, 8th and 9th Gen Intel procs, and DDR4 we always say, volume matters more than frequency. A 3200 MHz kit, for example, is more expensive and does offer better bandwidth but the performance increase in real-world usage will be hard to find. Unless you transcode videos over the processor a lot. As always, my advice would be to go with lower clock DDR4 memory with decent timings, but get more of it. Don't go for 8GB, get 2 or 4 DIMMs and in total a minimum of 16GB. The reason we test at 3200 MHz is simple. We do the same for AMD Ryzen and want to create a fair and equal playing ground for both. 3200 MHz is, however, a very nice equilibrium for both processor brands. Once tweaked we noticed that the 8 cores like a bit of extra voltage. We expect all core tweaks in the 5.1-5.2 GHz marker to need 1.38 volts on the processor. While that does increase power consumption, it wasn't something that scared me away. Some platforms will and procs will also be able to manage a lower voltage. Again, we have been using an S sample so I cannot say anything conclusive on the final retail products, these might run a tiny bit cooler. The infrastructure that Z390 offers is easy to use, you increase the CPU voltage and multiplier and you are good to go. Another plus for the Intel platform is that over the years they have been able to refine their memory controllers, pop in anything XMP 2.0 and you have a 90% chance it'll work straight out of the box with very fast memories. Mind you that all our tests are performed at 3200 MHz DDR4, similar to Ryzen and Threadripper to remain objective and for fair play on both sides. Realistically though, Ryzen is more memory frequency dependent in gaming than Intel is. The first paragraph of this page already gave it away, I really like this motherboard. The $299 price tag is steep, but this round you can see where that money went into, 8 SATA 3 ports, triple M2, triple Ethernet jacks with one Aquantia 10 Gbps connector as well as proper AC Wi-Fi. I'm loving that. Looks matter, and the looks for this board are just great. Especially once powered up, the subtle LED elements really make the magic happen. There's little to nothing complain really, fast Wi-Fi, fast Ethernet, support for SLI and Crossfire, and an ALC 1220 audio codec with S, diff and 3 M2 slots. At the time of writing it looks that this MOBO is going to cost you $299, with a similar figure in USD. ASRock did it right with the Teiki Ultimate from both a hardware and aesthetic design. This easily is ranking in my personal top 3 Z390 boards and worthy of a top pick award. One more introduces true wireless in-ear headphones. One more, whose products have been featured on Tech Power Up multiple times before, today added to their portfolio of audio peripherals with what they call their first truly wireless headphones. This is not necessarily their first wireless headphones, or even their first wireless in-ear headphones, but One More's usage of the phrase here refers to these having no wires connecting both pieces of the headphones either, as opposed to the bracelet-style wireless headphones they had before. Called simply the stylish true wireless in-ear headphones, which no doubt will make it harder to look them up in the long run, these new headphones come in black or gold color offerings and resemble many of the newer Bluetooth earphones in design. However, One More says that they have used the uncommon non-conductive vacuum metallization, NVCM, process to get the final color and finish on these, as opposed to the more popular physical vapor deposition or even electroplating of metal surfaces. They claim is an eco-friendly vacuum-plated coating process that provides both a sleek metallic finish and stable signal transmission. The earbuds themselves are larger than average at 27 by 23 by 23 mm and yet lightweight at just 6.2 grams each, and come inside a matching charging case that contains a 410 mAh battery that One More says will be plenty to charge both earbuds, 55 mAh each, multiple times, with a typical charge time of 70 minutes for both the earbuds and the case alike. On a single charge, the headphones will allow for up to 2.5 hours of use time, using Bluetooth 4.2 for connectivity that is rated for 10 meters from the source device. The headphones come with multiple sizes of silicone ear tips, and also ear hooks, to allow for a comfortable, customized fit. Audio is powered via a 7mm titanium composite dynamic driver, diaphragm type, in each earbud, and an LDS, laser direct structuring, antenna on the inner side of each earbud promises less signal interference and transmission. Multifunction buttons are present on both earbuds for added user convenience, including media playback control and accepting, rejecting phone calls directly from the headphones. The latter is aided by a second Bluetooth pairing option that allows only the right earbud to be connected for calls, and is complemented further by what the company calls DNC microphone technology, which supposedly is a high-stability MEMS microphone plus DSP technology that allows one to communicate in loud environments as if you were talking face-to-face. The One More truly wireless in-ear headphones are available for purchase at $99.99. Intel launches B365 Express chipset on 22nm process, possibly a rebranded Z170. Intel today introduced the B365 Express desktop motherboard chipset as an in-between to its B360 Express and H370 Express chipsets. This model is part of Intel's optical enlargement of its motherboard chipsets to the 22nm HKMG plus silicon fabrication node, to free up 14nm++ for processors. Despite this, the TDP of the chipset remains unchanged at 6 watts. The B365 has a couple of feature additions and subtractions over B360. To begin with, it has a wider PCI Express downstream route complex, with 20 Gen 3.0 lanes, on par with H370 Express. The B360, if you'll recall, only has 12 downstream PCI lanes. This means B365 motherboards will have additional M.2 and U.2 connectivity. According to the ARK specifications page for the B365 Express, this chip completely lacks integrated 10 Gbps USB 3.1 Gen 2 connectivity. Perhaps the expanded downstream PCI is really meant for motherboard vendors to use third-party USB 3.1 Gen 2 controller chips. You still get 85 Gbps USB 3.0 ports. Notice we didn't say USB 3.1 Gen 1, because don't expect fast charging features. The chipset also loses the latest generation wireless AC integrated MAC. All of these point to the possibility of the B365 Express being a rebranded Z170 with locked CPU overclocking. Adding credence to this theory is the fact that while the B360 uses ME version 12, the B365 uses the older ME version 11. Much like the H310C, the B365 could include platform support for Windows 7. Razer wants fans to mine crypto on their PCs for Razer in return for loyalty rewards. In a move that made us go WTF internally, Razer has decided to test their fanbase's loyalty more so than ever before. Today, the company introduced Razer SoftMiner, a mining software program that is intended to be installed on computers and run to mine cryptocurrency. But instead of the users getting whatever new cryptocurrency is in fashion, Razer instead wants to retain all mined crypto and in turn award users with the so-called Razer Silver loyalty reward credits, in their own words. Razer SoftMiner utilizes heavy GPU performance loads, and there is no mention as to what the actual mining is for. It is clear, however, that the users are not mining Razer Silver, which Razer is quick to admit is not cryptocurrency, and these loyalty credits are handed out in an equivalent manner based on the mining power of the system. In their estimate, a system with at least a NVIDIA GTX 1050 or AMD RX 460 running the mining program for a whole day will net 500 Razer Silver, and these can be used to redeem Razer peripherals, digital rewards such as games, vouchers and more from a dedicated rewards page. Razer Silver expires after 12 months from the date of earning, which makes this all the worse given the least expensive rewards include small-scale PC games at 21,000 silver, 40 days of continuous mining for games that can be bought for $10.15 without discounts, and Razer's own products will take a lot longer, over a year in some cases. This reeks of desperation for liquid cash, an unwise move in this time of low cryptocurrency interest and value, and overall little regard to their fans. Hopefully, no one ends up taking up Razer on this until we get more clarification on what the miner does for them, and even then, it needs to be a lot more lucrative to interest most people. Witchfire targets a 2020 release, will not be store-based, new gameplay teasers revealed. The Astronauts has announced that Witchfire will be unlikely released in 2019 and that it targets a 2020 release. Witchfire will be using Unreal Engine 4 and photogrammetry, and the Astronauts has also revealed some new gameplay teasers that will give you a small glimpse at what the team is currently working on. Witchfire is said to be a first-person shooter focused on challenge and mastery, however it will not be a story-based game. The Astronauts claim that there will be lore to explore and decipher, however it will not be story-based. There's lore to discover and decipher, but no cutscenes to follow. A project like that, for example like Bulletstorm, a game that some of us directed, would be bordering on impossible for a tiny team like ours. More importantly, though, the heart of the game is somewhere else. We will talk about it more as soon as we're ready. It's worth pointing out that the Astronauts is made of 8 people, so gamers should temper their expectations. This is precisely why the game is taking so long to complete and you should not expect a AAA game. So yeah, while the game looks lovely, you should not expect the next big Bulletstorm or Painkiller story-driven game. Or at least that's what the Astronauts claims. Warner Bros. Details the new free content coming to Hitman 2 in December. Warner Bros. and IO Interactive have released details on the free live content coming to Hitman 2 this month, including new contracts, escalations and the next elusive target mission. Below you can find all the free content coming to Hitman 2 in December. New featured contracts, occupational hazards, available now. All featured contracts are created by members of the community and then added to the game for all players to enjoy. For Hitman 2, featured contracts will be chosen based on themes, and the first is occupational hazards, as all contracts are focused on jobs, occupations and professions. New escalation contract, the Elwyn Augment, 13th December. Escalation contracts focus on how players can adapt their skills and play styles to the various complications that can be thrown Agent 47's way. This new escalation contract takes place on the mysterious Isle of Still and it is sure to be a memorable visit. Holiday surprise. 16th December, stay tuned for a time-limited, Christmas-themed surprise coming later this month. New elusive target, the Revolutionary, 21st December. A new elusive target will arrive in Santa Fortuna for 10 days, and you'll be able to unlock the casual tourist with gloves suit if you manage to complete it. More details on this contract will be available in the coming weeks. In the meantime, Check out the Elusive Target Rewards blog post for a full overview of the ET rewards. New escalation, the terms Infatuation, 27th December, the month will be wrapped up, pun intended, with an escalation contract in Santa Fortuna. Additionally, the last installment in the How to Hitman video series, Hidden in Plain Sight, was released today, showing players how to remain undetected in order to eliminate targets efficiently in Hitman 2. Whether it's to evade armed guards or avoid the attention of suspicious civilians, remaining incognito will be Agent 47's best bet to successfully accomplishing a mission. In Hitman 2, large crowds, tall vegetation and a well put together outfit will prove to be key factors to pull off the deadliest of deeds.